Hey, what is going on guys, Max Settings here, and welcome back to another review. So in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the iBasso SR1. These are quite an interesting headphone, as you will see here in just a moment. So if you don't know who iBasso is, they are a Chinese company, and they are known for their IEMs. I think probably the one that most people have heard of is the IT01. It's about $100. It's a pretty highly recommended IEM, right up there with like the VSonic GR07, something like that. But this is their entry into the full-sized headphone market, and it is quite the interesting entry into the market. So these are $500, and they are semi-open headphones, which is quite interesting, as we'll get to in a minute. And iBasso also claims that there are only 500 of these. And I have to question how that is true, because they've been in stock on their website and on Amazon for quite a while, and they are still there. I find it hard to believe that it's been almost a year, I think, now. So I don't know how they haven't sold all 500 by now. And I'm not really sure how they're cheating the system, as you'll see here in a sec. So they include this case inside the box. The box is cardboard box with drawings or whatever of the headphone. Hard case, square. It's a big old case. It says iBasso here in red leather. And inside the case, you will find a plaque there that says which number SR1 you have. This particular one is 225 out of 500. So I don't know how they're cheating the system if each one is individually numbered. Either they are just making duplicates of the same number, or they decided to expand the number past 500. This is not like a Ferrari where they say 1 out of 1,000 and they don't tell you which one. This one says exactly which one you have. So I'm not 100% sure how they're cheating that system, or if they're cheating that system, or if just somehow all 500 pairs are not sold yet. But I digress. I'm not entirely sure. But nice to include the case, even though it's big and you can't really use it every day. Okay, so let's get things going here with some basic specs of these. So as I already mentioned, these are $500. They are dynamic, semi-open. They have a frequency response of 3 to 40,000 hertz, an impedance of 22 ohms, a sensitivity of 108 dB per milliwatt, and they weigh 420 grams. All right, so let's talk about real quick what makes these interesting. So these headphones use 3 pieces of tech, and that's their bullet points of why these headphones are interesting. So these headphones are a Biodyna, a Tesla, and they use a silicone suspension or silicone surround for their driver. So they're Biodyna or biocellulose, like a Fostex headphone is, and that usually means warm bass with nice impact on most Biodyna headphones, like THX100, TH900, Creative Arvana Live, something like that. They are a Tesla, like a Beyerdynamic headphone. So for those of you that don't know what Tesla means, it is a technology that Beyerdynamic, or a standard, I guess, that they pioneered. So magnets have a measurement of, I think, strength that's called Tesla. And Beyer defines a headphone as a Tesla if the magnet has a flux density of, I think, 1.5 or greater. It's something like that, where most headphones have a flux density of like 1 or even less, I think, something like that. I haven't read into it that much, but that's a real basic definition of what a Tesla is. And they have a silicone surround for the driver, which is like a focal headphone, like a Lear, Alex, Utopia, something like that. So this headphone is using technology from Fostex, Beyerdynamic, and Focal in its driver design, and that is quite interesting. Okay, so let's talk about the build. So the build on these is a bit interesting. It has some highs and some lows for sure. So the headband structure looks straight up like a second generation hi-fi man. This looks like straight up like an HE560 or a 400i or something like that. Pretty similar shape and same kind of holes cut into it. We'll talk about the strap last because that's one of the big marketing points for these headphones. The adjustment system is like this plastic thing, and it's kind of stiff, and it doesn't feel very confidence-inspiring. It feels like it's going to break. You see, like even there, it's just like, oh, it's hard to get to slide. And this is quite a cheap feeling plastic. You can just kind of hear it. Yeah, it just doesn't feel all that good. This piece right here on both sides is plastic. This piece here that says iBasso, this is also plastic. The forks are metal on both sides. You can see the screws there. The cups, the silver part of the cups is plastic and it's painted, and apparently this chips fairly easily. It looks a lot like the HD800, like the finish. It even has like the same kind of almost like glitter to it like the HD800 has, and it has like this triple staggered cup kind of thing that's kind of interesting, and it makes it look kind of weird from a side profile, but it looks pretty neat from like that profile. The grills themselves are metal, and on the bottom you will find MMCX connectors, which I'm not a big fan of, and you'll see when we talk about the cables, a lot of the problems with those. But yeah, so one of the big marketing points for these is this head strap. And this is a Tuscan leather head strap. And yeah, this is, I'm pretty sure that I want to say this is the nicest headband strap I have seen. This is a thick piece of high quality Italian Tuscan leather. This feels like if you had a purse made out of this, it'd be like $1,000 plus purse. It's really nice, good leather texture, really soft, thick, cushiony, with an amazing leather smell. If you ever get a chance to hold one of these, look like a weirdo for a few seconds and smell the head strap, because it has that amazing leather smell. And on the bottom, it is like a suede nubuck kind of pattern for like grip on your head, and it's really wide for weight distribution. So yeah, the strap on these is really nice, and I can see why that's a marketing point for these. I wish more people would make straps like that, because that is a really, really nice headband strap. Okay, so now on to the comfort. So the comfort on these is almost there. There's just one problem with it. So the weight isn't too much. 420 grams isn't that bad. And the strap is really good, like I said, for the weight distribution. The clamp isn't too much. But for whatever reason, these pads get really hot. I'm not a person that gets hot ears with headphones. I think this is like the only headphone that I've had besides like the Audio-Technica M50Xs that have made my ears hot and sweaty. And I'm not sure why, because I don't have that problem with other headphones that use leather or pleather pads. But for whatever reason, the pads on these just make my ears hot and sweaty. And I don't know why, but that's the detriment to the comfort. The pads on these get very hot very quickly, but otherwise they would be very comfortable. Now there is another pad option with these that we'll get into when we get into the sound, but I don't have them here, which I'll also explain why not in just a second. Okay, so then on to cables. So this is the cable that the SR1 comes with. It was almost a good cable, but there's also a flaw with this. So it has a really nice machined 1/4-inch jack that's actually a screw-on 1/4-inch to 3.5 millimeters. So it's machined, and you can see they machined the little piece here also on the 1/4-inch jack. So you screw it back on. The cable is braided with a paracord, and it has a little metal Y-split right there. And you can see here it uses locking MMCX connectors. You can see the little keys on the connectors right there. And I don't know why they decided to use MMCX on a full-sized. I guess maybe because they're an IEM company and they know MMCX, they just decide to put it on their headphones. But MMCX on full-sized headphones is a big nope for me. The only headphones I can think of that used it was the version 1 of the M1060, which everybody hated, and they changed on the V2. And I think like the Shure 1540s do. I think maybe the 1840s do also, but I've never really paid attention much to the Shure headphones. But yeah, so MMCX brings up some problems on full-size headphones. The first one's durability. If you're someone who likes to take your cables off your headphones like every time you put them away like I do, you're going to wear out the connectors pretty quickly, because MMCX has an insertion rating of like 70 to 100, something like that. So you're going to wear out these connectors pretty quickly if you like to take your cables off all the time. The second problem arises with trying to replace this cable, because the problem with this cable is it's pretty stiff, and whatever the wire, like the jacketing on the inside jacketing of the wire is, sounds like it's like a hard plastic, and anytime it hits anything, it makes this sound like something's hitting it. It's like this weird like plasticky kind of sound, and it's so loud, and this is like one of the noisiest cables I've ever heard, and it's extremely annoying, which is why you probably want to replace it. Now, the problem comes with trying to replace this cable for two reasons. One, it's near impossible to find an MMCX cable that's longer than 4 feet, because MMCX is for IEMs and people don't want 6 foot, 10 foot cables on IEMs. So that means you have to go to the aftermarket, and there's not really anybody who makes MMCX cables. Ursine Audio is now out of business pretty much. So if you don't want to spend over $100 on an MMCX cable, that leaves you pretty much with Periapt. So this is one of their cables. I'll link to them again. Once again, not affiliated. But this is a 7-foot balanced cable for these that uses MMCX. Now MMCX itself brings up a second problem, because since these are locking and they're very skinny, most other MMCX connectors are not going to fit in the hole. Now, you're not going to be able to find the lock, because this is pretty much a proprietary lock. But even finding ones that even just fit in the hole is pretty tough. Now, the ones that Periapt use do fit in the hole. However, the heat shrink that's on the connectors was too much, and it didn't fit in the hole. So I had to take a knife and cut like half the heat shrink off the connectors on this Periapt cable in order to get it to fit in the hole, because it's a recessed connector. So yeah, that's kind of annoying. And also on the stock cable, the lock is a good idea, because I think it's to try to prevent you from breaking it by like having the cable like jerk around side to side or yank out. But it also makes it hard to take out, because the wire itself starts to twist just with use. So when you go to pull it out, it's hard to tell if it's like when it's like half twisted, if which way's which to unlock it to pull it out. So that's kind of annoying. So yeah, MMCX is a big nope on headphones, at least for me personally. I know for a lot of people. So if you ever make an SR2 iBasso, please don't use an MMCX. Use something better like 2.5mm or 3.5mm. Okay, so then as for the sound quality, so starting things off with the bass. So the bass on these is almost like planar, like it's almost like that flat planar bass. There's a little bit of roll off, about 3 dB or so, starting at about 80 hertz, and it just kind of drops down about 3 dB by the time you get to 20 hertz. But it reminds me kind of a lot of like the Focally Lex. It has like that pretty flat bass that's pretty good for a dynamic headphone. And then after that, the rest of the bass, the lower bass and the lower mids, just starts to come down. So after 100, it just starts sloping down a little bit, about 5 dB or so, until about 1K. And then after 1K, it starts to dip down about another 5 dB until about 2K. And then after 2K, it flattens out a little bit until about 3K. And then once you pass 3K, there is a massive like valley there of about 10 dB or so that lasts from about 3.2K until almost 5K. There's this massive hollow weird dip in the mids. And then at about 5K, it peaks back up, and there's a peak somewhere like 5.5 or 6K, which dips back down, and there's another valley of about 3 or 4 dB at around 7K. And then after that valley, it peaks back, it comes back up, and there's another peak of about 4 dB or so at around 9K. And then it flattens off a little bit above 10K, but there's some serious roll off above 10K, which hurts the air on these. These don't have a lot of that above 10 dB air. So yeah, the frequency response on these is not very good. There's some serious problems, especially in the mid-range, and some weird treble peaks that makes these sound kind of empty in the mids and has like some weird dip outs. On top of that, the dynamics of these is a bit confusing. Overall, they sound kind of compressed. They're not very dynamic sounding. However, certain tracks, the dynamics don't seem that bad. These headphones are quite confusing because some tracks they sound fine, like they have that Biodyna and the bass is hitting nice and hard like you would expect from a Biodyna headphone. And then other tracks, the bass sounds very weak and compressed sounding. Same with the treble. Some headphones, these seem to have very nice, crisp, detailed treble. And then other songs, the treble sounds very rolled off and very compressed sounding and kind of recessed. The mids, pretty much no matter what, sound off because there's weird dips. So yeah, the dynamics on these is strange. Some songs it seems worse than others, but overall they are a bit compressed sounding. To add to that, the timbre is also a bit plasticky. Actually, more than a bit, it is pretty plasticky. So these don't sound very natural at all. They have a very plasticky timbre to them. Detail-wise, they are not terrible. The treble detail in the songs where the treble sounds fine is pretty good. The mid detail is not that great, and the bass detail is also not that great. Now, of note, if you look at the head-fi thread for these, one of the earlier posts was a guy talking about how the Brainwaves XL perforated pads are really good for these, and if you do that, they compete with like HD 800 or something like that. I did try those. It did make the treble seem like it had good detail, although it might be fake detail. It's been a while since I've used those pads on these. And the reason I stopped using them is because it just destroyed the bass on these. You put those pads on, the bass is just gone. They sound like an Open Audio Technica headphone that just has no bass whatsoever. They go just a hard roll off at like 100 or 200 hertz or something like that. So yeah, those pads didn't work. I also tried the Brainwaves Round Hybrids. Those actually weren't bad. They seem to help like the treble a little bit. It seems to smooth it out slightly, although it still didn't fix the mids, and it kept most of the bass of the stocks, but not quite all of it. There are also perforated pads that iBasso made for these. I didn't end up buying them because one of my friends had them, and he has a pair of these, and he said that they didn't fix them at all. So I just didn't bother ordering the perforated pads for these. So yeah, these are a bit confusing. They sound like they have potential, but it's just missing that one thing. I don't know if it is the pads. There might be a pad out there that fixes these, but I'm not going to spend the time and the money to find that out. There might not be a pad out there that fixes these. There might just be some other flaw with the design of these. But I'd like to see somebody try to mod these or something to try to fix it, because maybe opening it up would help it. It seems like there's some kind of like cup there over the driver. You can kind of see, yeah, right there. See like that circular weird cup thing around the driver there, which that's how it's semi-open. So these don't leak as much as a fully open headphone, and they do sound a little bit closed off compared to open headphones. So that's how they are semi-open, but they still definitely leak a good bit. So yeah, so the sound on these is a bit confusing, and it's just not quite there, even for the money. I guess they're probably their competitor at $500 is going to be like the HD 660S here. These are technically superior, better frequency response, and better timbre, even though these have worse timbre than the 300 ohm 600 series. It is better than the iBassos for sure. So yeah, if you're going to pay, I wouldn't pay $499 for these either. But yeah, if you had to pay $500 for one of them, definitely go with the 660s here. And even the Sendia Iva for 600 is superior to these. So unfortunately, I'm not really going to be giving these much of a recommendation. They might be fun to play with if you want to if you have a lot of pads, like you've built up a collection of pads, these might be worth your time to play with, see if you can find something that fixes them. Although I would recommend having a measurement rig, because a lot of people claim pads fix headphones when they really don't, and there's a lot of bad pad swaps out there that are popular. So definitely have a measurement rig if you're going to be doing extensive pad swapping with these. Or maybe if you want to try to mod them, that might be an interesting headphone to mod. But yeah, in their stock form, I can't really recommend them at their price point. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed my review of the SR1s here. Shame they're not better, because I really like the look. I think from that angle they look pretty neat, and even from that they're very unique and cool tech. Cool idea. If iBasso ever makes like an SR2, like a second version, I'll definitely be interested in checking those out. But anyway, links to where to buy these in the description, as well as the MiniDSP EARS graph, my Twitter, my contact email, all that stuff. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye.